Hello, good morning, good evening, and this is Social Q. I'm your host, Gilberto Morales, and with me is my co-host, Noah Pagan. Noah, say hi to the people.
Hey, what's up?
Brilliant. Okay,
High
this is
energy.
officially our second episode. We did have a sub episode. We talked about what was it, Noah? It was the
It was about the standard
yes, of course.
and the coverage of COVID.
Yes. We're not going to talk about that today. We do have a follow-up episode of that. Stay tuned for that. But for this episode, since this is an official episode, Noah, go ahead and tell them about our little bread.
Our little bread.
Our little bread.
Poquito pan.
I don't know. Explain to the people what's going on first.
Okay. Today we're having white bread
Because
because we were part of BreadTube,
BreadTube, as in
the left side of YouTube.
great summary.
I thought we did this before. Oh shit.
We have to record it every single time
That's right.
to tell people about that.
Oh my.
For every episode.
Okay, well, this is what we're doing.
I'm pretty sure they got that by the time you finish telling them that. All right, enjoy your.
This is white bread.
This is white bread, which is, I guess, fitting. Is it fitting for the episode today?
I really hope it's not.
Oh, all right. I'm giving a hint. Okay.
I don't want to say it's fitting. Sounds really bad.
And this bread is really bad because it's stale.
It tastes like white bread.
Moving on from that.
What if we just keep on forgetting, like, which bread we do? We just accidentally do white bread every single time. Like, wait, did we do white bread last time?
No.
And every single time we're just eating white bread.
Then this whole thing would have been for nothing.
I never listen over the episodes after they're done. So, like, I wouldn't know.
Okay. Well, at least...
This is more of a thing for me in the moment rather than a thing after.
So
like,
you feel better about yourself after this?
Do I feel bad?
Because you've done this?
Yeah. Because
I hate you.
I get to talk about it.
I have to listen to this. I'm the editor. For those of you for everyone who doesn't know, I have the equipment, I record the episodes, and I post them. Noah just sits there and talks.
I'm the talent.
Well, now I just don't want to do it. Man, you.
The end of Social U? To be continued?
No. Okay. All right. Moving on from that, before we begin the official episode, I have a little thing to talk about with Noah. So I was on Reddit, and on I think it was the socialism subreddit, they actually sent a link to the Cuban equivalent to Wikipedia. It's called Echo Red. That's what it's
Why
called.
is it? Okay.
All right, and they sent a link to a description of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's translated to English because that's what Google does. Thank you, Google. Now, I will read the first paragraph and let me know what you think. All right, so remember, this is from another country. This is their viewpoint. United States of America. It's a country located almost entirely in North America, also including states in Oceania. It is made up of 50 states and a federal district, Washington, D.C., the capital of the country. With about 309 million inhabitants, it is the third most populous country in the world, although it is quite far from the two, China and India. That's not a bad description.
No.
You think?
It's not bad.
No. All right. Second paragraph. Recognized as the empire of this age, it is the most powerful nation of all time. Emerged as an independent nation in 1776, it has achieved remarkable economic, scientific, and military development. It has historically been criticized by forcibly disposing other nations and countries of territories and natural resources to put them at the service of their companies and monopolies. With just 4% of the world's population, it consumes 25% of the energy produced on the planet. And despite its wealth, more than a third of its population does not have healthcare insurance.
That's still true.
Yeah, but they're being very truthful than a lot of our politicians like to admit. So this is one thing of how other countries see us. I mean, that feels like a light jab at us, just like a light one. I mean, I feel like other countries would just straight up just like call us out and a bunch of other shit.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Especially the healthcare thing. I think that's kind of interesting because it kind of shows you how unprecedented our system is.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But like for other countries to call us out on it, it seems so obvious that we should fix it. But for some reason, it's still like a debate.
In our own context, in other countries, that's not really debatable.
It's not. It should be obvious.
Yeah.
On that, unfortunately, with the disparity in this country, we're going to move on to our first topic of I guess the evening, institutional violence, specifically indirect oppression. I guess some people would call it systematic racism or like I don't know other names for it. Noah.
Not just. I mean, institutional violence isn't just systemic racism. I think it's all like ways in which the system indirectly causes harm to people. Though I mean, you could argue, is it how indirect it is? I guess because that's kind of how it is by design. By indirectly, I mean like nobody's coming up to someone and shooting them, for not working or something like that.
That would be like
That'd be like a
total
dictatorship.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of the authoritarian states.
Yeah.
So, what is your view on the institutions of this nation?
I think we have like a real lack of welfare services. I think that, I mean, obviously I haven't really experienced it as much because I'm more fortunate, but I think that we don't really view like housing we definitely don't view healthcare as a human right. I don't think we really view like a lot of things that a lot of other people would view as something that people have a right to. We don't.
Well, how do you view healthcare?
It's a human right. I think that it should be provided for everyone, and there shouldn't be a profit. There should be some sort of basically indirect punishment for not having health care. Because whenever you don't have health care because you aren't rich enough, I mean, it's basically like the system punishing you for not having health care. I mean, that's in a sense institutional violence.
Yeah, that'd be like indirect murder.
It is definitely indirect murder. You're by not helping them, even though you have the resources to help them, because by the way, our military is like super rich. I mean, a lot of that could go towards healthcare, and that's been illustrated over and over and over again. We don't do it, even though we have the resources. I mean, Britain has the resources, and they're not as much of a superpower as us.
Well, I mean, people tend to look at the population comparisons to it.
Yeah,
how do you justify that one?
I don't feel like it's very comparable. I don't think it's something that you can really argue, because it's like when you look at how much this country makes and how much we spend and can afford to spend on our military and the cost of healthcare, and this has been shown. There's like, estimated cost of healthcare would cost like vastly less than that. I don't think there's much of a argument for that, because the healthcare, if you set it up the right way, it's cheaper per person than a privatized system. I don't think there's really much of a problem. I mean, if you're doing it by, I think healthcare should be done on a basis of who needs it the most, obviously, but like, because that's basically what you would have to do in that sort of system. I don't think that's a bad thing, because it's like, if you're doing it by how much you can pay.
Do you think it should be like an inverted like balance?
What do you mean?
Like just the lowest income individuals like below the poverty line get majority of the coverage. Like in a
You mean people
system
get
like
better coverage?
people get better coverage based on their income, and as you
I
it's like basically another like government aid, like Medicaid.
I mean, at that point, wouldn't it just be like almost like a public option in a way?
Well, not necessarily a public option. I think like at eventually a certain point, not a public option for everyone.
I think no
Like
matter if
the lowest income people, they don't have an option. There is no option for them. They just get that.
I guess I can see an argument for that, but I think that no matter who you are, rich, poor, or whatever, I think healthcare is a human right, and I think it should be provided for by the government, kind of like how school is.
Well, there still is a public option at that point.
What?
School, because people can get automatically enrolled in public school, but you can choose to go into private school.
Yeah,
or
you're right about
schools. But the thing about that is we're still having that.
It's not exactly.
We still have that same problem.
Of course, you can't force someone to go to school, but I'm saying like it's not exactly like.
Well, you can at a
so
certain
if there's
age.
like a public option, it would be like something you like opt into, and you'd have to basically it's means tested, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't qualify for it, then you don't qualify for it. That's not so. We don't have really a public option in terms of like schooling. It's like anybody who can do it and can send their kid there, they can do it. I mean, education's a whole nother thing. I think that's another form of. That's also kind of another form. I don't know. That I guess could be more argued as that being a form of institutional violence. But like the fact that like many people don't have the resources to provide for their families as much because they don't have the education they need in this country is kind of also another thing that I think one could argue for, because increasingly, I mean, today you kind of need, I mean, you don't exactly need one, but having a college degree kind of puts you in a better position economically. And used to, you could get many positions without a college degree, but nowadays you need a college degree for like tons and tons of things. Yet the price for college is going up.
That's very interesting, because I feel like a lot of that stems from a couple of factors. One being that a lot of jobs have become obsolete,
yeah,
because of innovation and machinery, and because of that innovation and machinery, I feel like a lot of other jobs have popped up, and those require a higher level of education, and so they've replaced them in that way. But also, it's become quite difficult to even get out of the debt because of requirement of a college degree.
Yeah.
So in that aspect of it, you kind of don't want to go to college. You kind of rather go to a trade school instead. And so a lot of people do that, or just take those high level positions, and a lot of times they take them for a lower wage, and so that can also be a factor in that. So that's I guess that counts as institutional violence. Let's get into more specific things. I think social services would be in that category, because it involves such an early stage of life. It involves your kids, like people's kids and stuff like that. So yeah. I feel like from a young age, if you're in and out of a social service system, I don't think the U.S. has at all the best social service system out there, and that's only because like my fiance, she was in the system, and so she has a personal account of it, and she keeps telling stories about how terrible it was in the foster homes, in the care of the people who run the thing, and the people who check on you to go see if you're all right. All of that is subject to just terrible maintenance.
I mean, that's interesting you say that. It kind of reminds me of the fact that like how bad the aid is for people who are struggling from addiction is in this country. It's like,
yeah, that's the next stage. I guess that would be technically the next stage of what we're talking about here, because like once they age out of the social service systems, they're pretty much going on their own, and where did they know the things that used to get them in trouble in social services, but now they can't go back into the system, and no one's taking care of them. So next is the drug crisis and the drug problem, and how we handle that situation as a nation.
And they're like publicly funded like places for people to like get rehabilitation technically, but like nobody wants to go to them. Like nobody wants to go to them because they suck so much, and they're usually like kind of like they're known as trashy places. And so then you're either in a position to where you do something like that, or you go to a private one where you have to pay out of pocket. You have to pay tons of money out of pocket.
Wasn't your mom looking for a rehab center, and she found one for like $20,000 a year or something, like a month?
Yeah, they're expensive. And then there's also tons of them that are like religiously like motivated, so it's like that discounts so many people. Like, you know,
that really does.
And I'm not gonna blame the organization, because I know that if that's what they're founded on, then that's what they're founded on. But it's like you have a choice between either something that you may not believe in as being something that is supposed to be there to help you. I mean, also, I'm not even going to get into the fact that some of these, I feel like, so I've never experienced it myself, but like a faith-based system, unless they're involving psychology, I wouldn't put any sort of like, what's it called, value in that, because it's like, if they're not battling addiction on a psychological basis, then it's not worth anything, because it's like, you can believe in whatever you want, but at the end of the day, you're still going to like have those bad tendencies because of your psychology. But I'm not saying like anything about that. I'm not saying like they're all like that. But yeah, you either get a choice between something that's like publicly funded and sucks because it's probably underfunded, or you go to something that you have to pay a lot of money for, or you go to something that you have to choose something that's faith-based. And you may not want to do that. What choice do you have whenever it's like you have so little choices for that? Yeah. And addiction is treated like something that's not a disease.
It definitely is a disease, and people should get the necessary help for it. But a lot of times it's not even possible.
No, it's not.
Like, it's not even a reason. It's like something that's way out of reach for some people. Especially a lot of low-income people, and especially definitely a large majority of the homeless populations in this country, especially in the major cities, they just struggle with addiction, and they struggle with homelessness, and so that's another form of the institutional violence we see here. And so people need to understand that it's actually more complex, I should say, when you see a homeless person on the street.
Yeah, it is. They either have a genetic or something that they are predisposed to. I mean, a lot of people who are there are a lot of homeless people who are schizophrenic. That's a huge part of the homeless population. And they can't afford the meds they need to manage it, or they can't afford the counseling to help for it. I mean, of course, that goes back to our medical system, but like, there's also a lot of homeless people who struggle with addiction, and there's a lot of homeless people who struggle with, there's the whole social services issue. Mm-hmm. They can't live with their parents, they don't know what to do, and they go to the streets. So there's that, and I don't know. I feel like it's funny how like it works. The system works in a way where it's like you don't even know it's working too. I hate saying the system, but like the way in which we live our society,
the structure of
it, like the stigma behind homeless people. And I'm not going to say that I'm perfect, because I've definitely placed stigma on homeless people. I'm trying to get better at that. But like the stigma around homeless people, what is that? Who does that benefit in the long run? If you have solidarity with a homeless person, that's not gonna hurt people who are subjugating or who are putting those people in their place. If you are stand with them in solidarity, as opposed to what helps. What does that serve to do if you have if you place a stigma on them? Well, that's going to help the people who are causing that situation. So of course they're gonna that there's a little bit of an incentive. I feel like there's a little bit of incentive for people who are within their class who are higher up to not have solidarity with homeless people, middle class people and stuff like that, because in a way, like they have, I guess, some of their self interest lies in that.
It's a very unfortunate thing that goes around, that happens in many communities. Here specifically in Springfield, we have a large, population of young homeless people,
Mm-hmm.
which is, for me, when I found out about that, I was like, whoa, that's kind of depressing in a lot of the sense, because like, a lot of these teens and young adults, they didn't get a chance. They've only been here for like probably less than 2.5 decades, and I hope that at least one of those decades they were cared for at all. But that doesn't give them enough time to do anything. Like if you have nothing, start with nothing, which I know what it's like to have basically nothing. But I was fortunate to have a mother who provided like at least some sort of care and like financial situation where we were well enough to have a roof over our heads. And so like to see like a young person, it's more heartbreaking than anything else, really.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like the old people deserve to be over there. I mean, I don't know their situation either. I'm saying like all of them are important equally, but it's kind of surprising when it's a young person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're all equally bad. Like no one should be out there on the streets, but it's kind of eye catching whenever it's like such a young person being out there.
Yeah. I what is your view on like the reasoning for institutional violence, or like why it exists?
I think it's to uphold something. It's to uphold a tradition. In the past, people have always justified violence in some sort of capacity. So to bring it up to today's standards and today's logical thinking that we have grown into, I don't think it fits anymore. Okay, I understand that it was part of something back in the day, like it happened, but that doesn't make it okay to stick around. Like I'm not saying it was okay because it was in the past and we can forgive them. No, it could never be forgiven. I'm just saying it's in the past. We can't change it. We can only talk about it. So what we can do is we can change it now, and those who justify it now are just stuck in the past and thinking of the traditional sense. So the way it worked perfectly well.
Yeah.
Like it worked exactly how they wanted it to work. And
Yeah, I guess you're right about the historical aspect of it, because it does also like benefit whiter folks more, and it disadvantages people of color and black people more. When you think of like gerrymandering, or like, I mean, there's lots of ways in which people are indirectly violent towards groups, and take away their representation, take away their, certain services, or hurt them.
mm-hmm.
So yeah, I guess you're right about that.
Yeah.
But like, I definitely think it's like a part of the. I think it like serves to like keep a working class base of people. I feel like that's what it kind of serves to do. To be honest.
Yeah, obviously, because
like a capitalist society like needs people who are the workers
who are willing,
support the
who are
people
just willing
at the top.
to do the service.
Yeah. So I think it does. It's kind of a mechanism to keep them there.
Mm-hmm.
Having so much stuff, so much like different requirements in order to get into college, is a method in which people are kept in that position. I don't think it's because like, oh well, this is how you get ready for. Like, it's not purely that. It can't be that pure.
No.
Especially with the whole money thing.
All right, our next topic, we're going to talk about now the Black Lives Matter movement.
I guess it still goes with institutional violence.
Yes, but this is more of activism.
Reaction
the reaction to the institutional violence. And this was a story that came up just a couple days ago, and it happened a couple days ago. The shooting of Jacob Blake. So the shooting of Jacob Blake, it was about I guess around a late 20s African American male who was shot 7 times in the back by policemen after an altercation in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
Yeah, and he survived somehow.
Yeah, and for me, this story is surprising because of the fact that he's alive.
Yeah.
The fact that he is alive and he's hopefully recovering well, but he's I think it's going to be an interesting story once it unfolds because of the fact that hopefully he'll be able to speak his side of the story, which you never get to hear in these instances because they unfortunately
died.
Yeah, they're dead. They unfortunately end in murder.
I just assumed that he died whenever I first saw it.
Yeah.
I was like, and I heard later on that he was alive. I was I'm very surprised. I was happy that a person actually survived in one of these cases, but like so often that doesn't happen. So it's kind of weird. Yeah, it happened like after 7 shots.
Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting story to unfold. So I looked at a couple of media sources and they all said similar things. None of them actually acknowledged it. They kind of vaguely said the story of it. And so basically the altercation happened like this. I'm not going to get into what happened or why the police were called there because that doesn't feel relevant. I'm going to talk about how the thing got escalated because he obviously was walking away from cops and not cooperating with them. That's understandable. All right, law enforcement, they're trained in those situations where someone is resisting. But he walked on his driver's side of the car around, and he didn't listen to cops. And he opened the door and reached in and leaned over, and that's when the cop grabbed him from behind, pulled his shirt, and shot him in the back. He was shot in the back by police officers 7 times, which when I talked to a couple of my conservative friends and a couple of them who defend the cops, they even admitted that it was excessive.
I mean, 7 times.
7 times. I mean, what the hell was that? So,
and also, did they discharge the taser already? Did they use the taser already?
They did say yes. They tried to taser him. It did not do any effect.
Okay.
All right. Which at that point, I feel like you should have just. I'm not telling them to do how they do their job, because they're doing the job as well as they possibly can. I just feel like the training should be more rigid.
Yeah.
And
they don't train them enough.
Yeah. So it's not the fault. It's not the fault. I can't say it's not the fault of the officer. I feel like it shouldn't be, because he was just doing the best of his ability.
I mean, I definitely think you should probably catch a charge for it.
Yeah. Like some kind of thing. I don't know how the law. We're not lawyers.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say he was innocent. This instance. I'm just saying that. I guess you're trying to say that like you think the system should be reformed on how like cops should be.
Which we will talk about in a second. Here.
Well, I agree with that.
So the story that a lot of news people are talking about was he had a knife. He had a knife. It was not on him. It was in his car. People think that that's why he was going to his car, was to reach for the knife, and the knife was on his floorboard of the car. So, by the way, the officers did not know this. They found out when they searched his car that the knife was there. Also,
is this a stupid thing to say, but like, honestly don't think the cops should use the gun unless it is very clear that their life is in danger. And in this case, like, I feel like when it comes to human life, I feel like the cops should have went back to their car or something like that. But like, or if they're about to hurt someone else, it's like, I don't know. But it's like, you've seen video. There's this video of like cops in like England who were dealing with a dude who had a machete, like a freaking machete. He was going after them with it, and they were prepared for that. They didn't even kill him, which is amazing. And there are times where people have guns and they don't kill them.
Right.
And most of the time they're white. Why isn't that same sort of energy and like training, like it should be, the goal should be like to like uphold human life and not try to be so loose with shooting people. I know that sounds like really preachy and really like, I'm not a cop. It's possible, like it's been done in other countries.
And
that's what's so difficult about the situation, is because we're not cops. But like, at the same time, it's like, I don't believe that these are illegitimate criticisms at all.
I think they're legitimate. They're justifiable. They're understandable. What doesn't make sense to me is that I think the cop was hesitant at first, because otherwise he would have shot him when he started walking away, or at the very least like tackled him, or did something, because in a lot of those situations the cops don't let you walk away. They stop. They try to prevent you to leave.
Yeah.
He was not running. He was not trying to escape the situation.
Yep.
So in that sense, the cop just should have bursted and just grabbed him and try to tackle him to the ground, because that's their training.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. You don't see a weapon. You see them, which is technically resisting, walking away. Mm-hmm. I think they were perfectly justifiable to tackle him.
Yeah.
In that sense. I don't know anything about like that. So like understanding that scenario and me clearly seeing that there was possibly another way. I don't know what was stopping the cop in the first place, and what finally got him to start pulling the trigger 7 times at the end there.
Yeah. That's the hardest part of it, because you can't really say that, but at the same time it's like, that there's ways in which it could have been better, and
you've
ways.
Seen those ways.
I've seen them. Like, I mean, like, I told you that the situation with the English cops, and they were apprehending someone with a machete who was going after them,
and it was very obvious that he had a machete.
It was very obvious, and like they had a specific ordered way, and they subdued him, and he didn't die. But that same energy isn't put into the training of our police officers. Like the life of the people is totally just disregarded. Yeah.
And to make it more specific, the life of a black person.
Yeah.
In this country, because what makes the story even more appalling is that in that exact same town, in that exact same state, or in the exact same week.
Yeah.
All right. Another story happened in Kenosha of a teen. I'm not going to say his name because he's a teenager. Bringing semi-automatic weapon?
He had an AR.
An AR. Okay, so he brought an AR to a rally, to a Black Lives Matter rally, to a protest, to protest the life of the man who was shot 7 times in the back by cops a few days earlier, and I think shot 3 people, killed 2 of them.
Yeah.
Severely injured another. And he
showed the cops like he was carrying a gun.
It was very obvious. He wasn't trying to hide it. He wasn't trying to hide the fact that he had a gun. He walked right by the cops and then had the altercation and then walked towards the cops and just casually started talking to them.
Now, I guess the cops were in the same area whenever he shot.
Yeah, they didn't see it. They didn't see what happened. But people were yelling. Were telling the police that he shot people. So it's surprising
he actually went
that
home.
happened.
He also went home.
He managed
back
to
home
not
and
get
fell asleep.
He managed to not get arrested, or even questioned, or even stayed there and be questioned by the police. He was able to walk free from that.
He wasn't even stopped. So, I don't know. I can't say for what kind of police department that town is running, but like, there was some deference shown to him. there was some leniency shown towards him.
Yeah, most definitely.
I mean, like, there's something.
I don't understand. Why was that scenario like any different? Was it because he was being obvious that he wanted to kill someone?
I mean,
we could just say like it was because of race. Like they saw a white male with a gun and they were like, "Oh, he's on our side."
Yeah,
But a black man walking away, he's clearly the criminal. And
yeah.
Speaking of criminal, I don't understand why people keep bringing up criminal records in these scenarios. I don't understand why that's relevant.
It doesn't matter what they did before. Like, there could be some heinous things that the person was accused of beforehand. The cop isn't the judge, jury, and executioner. That's not how the law works.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, the criminal record is only relevant to the judge.
Yeah.
Especially for repeat offenders.
It's really just to muddy the waters and make them feel less bad about the fact that the person was shot.
It's still not justifiable, though.
It's not. It's not justifiable.
You can't justify that with, oh, he stole a candy bar earlier. So therefore...
Yeah, I mean, they did that with Mike Brown.
Yeah.
You know, he was in an altercation with someone, with like a shop store owner. Oh, look at the poor shop store owner. Yeah, I don't care about that. Yeah, that's a bad situation. Maybe he shouldn't have done that. But the fact he got shot, that wasn't good.
That's not
justifiable.
It doesn't make sense that you bring up the past in a way that shouldn't have affected the situation at all. I mean, look at the teen that like shot and murdered people. They didn't bring up his past. They actually deleted it. Mm-hmm. Took down his profile on Facebook, so you can't look at it anymore. And no one has brought up a criminal record or any sort of history with him. You know, finding out that the person who was brutally murdered or possibly paralyzed in this scenario, finding out that he did something in the past has nothing to do with what happened to him when dealing with law enforcement. It just doesn't do anything.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. I mean, the reason why I brought up I don't know what kind of police station they're running or police department they're running was because like in this country things can really vary in terms of like how good or bad a police department is. Like for instance, like in Kentucky, in Louisville, the same area where Breonna Taylor was shot and killed, which by the way, they literally they swatted their home. So that happened, and they got the wrong house.
They got the wrong apartment. They got the wrong house. The person they were after had already been arrested about like an hour before. So
they got scared because
somehow no one notified the squad.
Yeah, and they went in. They got scared because the husband was obviously scared, or was it husband or boyfriend, something like that.
Significant other.
And
I think he shot at the ground.
Yeah, and then they ended up shooting Breonna Taylor, and like she died, and it was really bad, and nothing came of it besides maybe I think one of them got fired, but like that police department, they said, oh, they're looking into it, but like there's obviously a whole bunch of corruption. Because there's a Vice did a great story on it, where they talked to the mayor, and the mayor just gave them non-answers about like the investigation of Breonna Taylor's death. You know, holding those cops accountable. There wasn't just one; it was multiple who ended up firing, and then he gave a bunch of non-answers, and then they interviewed a former cop. Who was like a black He was a black cop, like he was African American, but like he spoke of his experience there, and he said they were massively racist, and that's the reason why he left. They expected them to like plant drugs into people's cars, and they did it, and they were called drop-offs or something like that. They had like even a term for it. They're gonna plant drugs in people's cars and then like tell them, oh, you're in possession of this drug, and then throw them in jail. It's like obviously illegal, but like no one's doing anything about it, and they just kind of do whatever they want. So it's like that's the reason why I brought up that, you know, the like I don't know what sort of police department they're running, because it could be like that. It very well could be in this country.
It could be like that, you know. I mean, it's not that far-fetched that this couldn't possibly be what's going on there.
I mean, and also, by the way, Destiny knows how bad their police department is, because she's from that area. She's not from Louisville, but she's from an outskirt area, and they're like, yeah, you don't do anything in Louisville. You cross your T's and dot your I's when you're there, because they'll give you some sort of charge.
And that's just something that we need to somehow. I don't know.
Well, first of all, we need to make the cops not an occupying force.
Yeah, I don't see the reasoning behind that. Like,
the reasoning behind it is because, I mean, the short answer is, I guess, racism. But like, you can't really say because racism.
No, because like it's so embedded into our system.
Yeah.
That it's
a lot more complex.
It's something that people can just avoid or use in some sense.
Yeah.
Thing, because of the way it's structured, and that's the beauty of it. People can hide behind it and not like feel any remorse for it.
Yeah, and the thing is that they justify it with, oh well, these areas are like hotspots for crime. Oh well, what happens to be the hotspots for crime? Areas that are disproportionately, you know, areas in which black and brown people live. And why does that happen? Because inadequate schooling, inadequate services, and
government funding was pulled from those areas.
Is pulled from those areas. Obviously, it's going to be like that because people are fighting for resources, fighting for money, because they need money to live.
Yeah.
So people are going to turn to crime. But then it just reinforces their idea of, oh, we need more funding. We need tanks. We need these huge militarized vehicles to better enforce these areas.
In civilian areas.
In civilian areas.
In the streets.
Which, by the way, I mean, this is basically going against the Constitution. It's kind of like...
Yeah.
You know, the whole, like...
Was it the Third Amendment?
The amendment that people think is irrelevant.
The third one?
The one where basically military...
The third one.
Yes, the third one. That I couldn't remember which one.
I've just been saying it this whole time.
Thank you. Well, you knew. You were ahead of me. It says you cannot have like...
See, this is why we need to talk to a libertarian. You don't know your Bill of Rights.
You don't know your... Yeah, anyway. It literally like goes against that because... That's the amendment that basically says you cannot have an military living in your area. What's going on is being unconstitutional on that basis.
You can't argue.
They're not in their homes, but they're in their communities, and they could be. I mean, a lot of these police departments, let's be real, could be actually qualified as military forces, because the military's since the 80s, the military's been sending. They'll buy vehicles and stuff from the military.
Yeah.
Police departments have been. And by the way, police did not exist literally as a thing really up until the mid 1800s. And do you know how the police were originated? They were originated as people who were basically slave catchers. Mm-hmm. That's who were the originators of the police.
The police department.
Yeah, police departments
and stuff like that.
That's what they were used for, like finding escaped slaves. I'm not saying that law enforcement is not necessary. I mean, I think there are some instances in which law enforcement is necessary, but like, it's worth mentioning that like, the law enforcement as it is like did not exist back in the 1700s, and by the standards that, I mean, if someone from that time period came to today and looked at our police forces, I mean, there's no way that they wouldn't call them a military force. And people from other countries come in and look at our police forces, and they look they're definitely military. They could be qualified as military force.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm not being hyperbolic. Like, it's just true. I don't know. I just that should be dealt with. It
definitely should be reformed.
When you use a hammer for something that doesn't require a hammer, everything's gonna look like a nail. They're gonna use force. They're gonna use like way more force than they're needing to.
Right.
For simple de-escalation.
Simple de-escalation. I feel like every situation doesn't require a cop.
Yeah.
I feel like
you're right.
The police people have the burden of every de-escalation, which is
it doesn't
necessary.
always require a cop.
It's not.
It could be either a medical professional. It could be.
We can even
different.
No, it doesn't even have to be something that exists already. We can even
invent new things.
Create these new types of like occupations that to de-escalate, to figure out and assess the situation and things like that. And law enforcement is like just law enforcement. Like it's literally in the name. Like, you enforce the law. Okay, not every situation is about enforcing the law.
Sometimes it's just, it's not exactly strictly that, I don't know. I feel like people are so accustomed to police officers that some people, that they think it's preposterous to, like, suggest anything else, but we could literally make whatever, I mean, I don't know, it sounds like so, like, weird, like, we could literally make whatever, but, like, we could, in theory, make whatever we want, but a lot of people choose not to because, I mean, they're not really affected by it,
Yeah.
And in fact, I mean, a lot of people, like whiter folks, are somewhat protected by the police. So I mean, I guess for some people it is in their best interest. Maybe they're not consciously recognizing that, but I'm sure that in some level it's within their best interest. So of course they're going to be more prone to say something like Blue Lives Matter or whatever,
Right, and it's just
that's the troubling thing about it, I guess. That's the hard part about it as a person on the left.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time thinking about this. I'm starting to feel like Kenny Smith on ESPN. Did you hear about that?
No.
Kenny Smith, so what happened in the NBA?
Is that the guy who walked out?
Yeah, he walked out.
Yeah, okay.
You know what I'm talking about,
right?
Yeah,
I know what I'm talking about then.
He walked out, and it was just too much for him, I guess. And that's understandable. It's just totally justifiable what he did. And a lot of people need to understand, like, the amount of emotions that someone is going through because of the situation that's going on. And for some reason it's increasing. Like, it's just going to the point where people are scared of a complete shutdown of what of this country. And I mean, that is far-fetched. It's not. I definitely think it's not going to happen. But if we're on the path that we are right now, in the near future, that could, in my opinion, could change on that.
Yeah,
definitely.
I think that we're closer to like a revolution than we've ever been.
Yeah, and it's not. We're not even that close to a revolution.
I mean, not that we've ever been, but like in a long time.
in
In
our
time.
existence. Yes.
I think the last time that we were this close to some sort of revolution was back in the 1930s. I mean, back in like the early 30s during the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
And then when relief came via the New Deal, that was sort of capitalism was kind of saved.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I feel like it was delayed.
Yeah, this sort of thing happening was delayed. I think this mixed with all the economic impacts was an inevitable. But I'm not saying that this is going to lead to revolution. It's either going to lead to
some sort of reform.
Some sort of, I would hope it would lead to some sort of meaningful reform.
Yes.
I think that people need to still do direct action, but like if it goes like it is going for a bit longer, it could, like you said, our opinion could on this whole situation could change to, oh, well,
it's starting to look like a good idea.
Starting to look like a revolution here, right?
Yeah. So on that note, thank y'all for listening. Remember to go out and do direct action if you're able. If not, then think about, talking to, or like, calling, emailing, texting your representatives, your
donating,
congressmen. Definitely donate to people you think are good for your cause, whatever it might be, and definitely be more involved. So thank y'all for listening. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter. My at, I guess you could say, is at Gilly Morals, no spaces, no caps. And then Noah's is Noah Pagan 12, capital N, capital P.
That's for Twitter. For Instagram, it's just chill.
It's just chill, little Noah.
Yeah.
Little Noah Pagan.
All lowercase.
All right. Thank y'all for listening or watching if you're on YouTube. All right. Social Q out.